Living Clean, Living Well is a presentation of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
Good evening, everyone. What is in your recovery toolkit? You're watching Living Clean, Living Well, Canada's only live interactive television talk show that deals with addictions, recovery, and hope. We're so glad to have you with us tonight. We're going to be talking about mindfulness and recovery. What is it? What is it that you need to know and how you can use it in your very own recovery? Tonight we have brought on two experts in their field. Would you please welcome Dr. Vera Tarman, who is our regular contributor here on the show. She is Medical Director at Relaxation. Hi, Dr. Tarman.
Hello, Teresa. Glad to be back.
Always. And he was so fabulous last time we had to invite him back. Sean Megason, he's an addictions counselor and therapist. Hi there, Sean.
Hi.
So tonight, mindfulness and recovery, and really this will take us over a gamut, not just about addictions, but it can help you deal with depression, with stress, with anxiety. There's been a lot of areas that this can help. Sean, I was wondering if you could just define it for us, mindfulness and recovery.
Okay, it's a big topic. So mindfulness started as a practice in the early 1980s, originated by a fellow named Jon Kabat-Zinn. He wrote a few very important books. And the practice itself comes from the ancient practice of Buddhism. So if you see in your, the iconic image of a monk sitting, meditating, slowing everything down, breathing, pretty much being mindful of what's going on in the body, what's going on in the mind, and being aware of it. So in mindfulness, there's a distinction between the experiencing ego and the observing ego. So when you're really into mindfulness and you're meditating, and there are other exercises as well, but primarily based on meditation, you're in your observing ego. So you're not catastrophizing, you're not living through your emotions. Let it pass. Right.
So Dr. Tarman, when you're going through the throes of addiction, you're into your recovery, maybe you're dealing with, as I mentioned, depression and stress and anxiety, how can this help you, mindfulness?
Well, it's an excellent tool. It's just an excellent tool. I mean, I don't really know how to say it other than that. It's considered one of the key. Gosh, I don't know how else to say it other than it's just an excellent tool. Yeah.
But meditation, do you suggest this to your clients?
Yes, I do suggest it to my clients. I mean, the thing is that when I see my patients, they're usually still using, and it's really important that they stop using first. But as soon as they put down their substance, then it's a question of, well, now what do I do now? And it's such an important tool in learning how to manage and first of all acknowledge and manage emotions which are going to seem really big, and it's done in such a way that it's very clean. You don't have to take any medication. You don't have to do anything outside of it. If you can embrace it, it's a great tool that you can carry through beyond recovery into life.
Tonight on Living Clean, Living Well, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be examining this topic, how you can use it. Sean Megason actually teaches meditation. We were talking before the show, how many people can actually meditate? I have tried, and sometimes it's like squirrels. It's like, how do you settle your mind down, So anyway, how can you use this technique of mindfulness to carry you through your recovery? We're also here for your general questions. I know that we've had a lot of viewers out there that have been struggling with depression and stress and anxiety. There's a lot of things that get to us on a daily basis. Pain management is another one that mindfulness can help you with. So we're here for your general questions as well. Ask Dr. Tarman. She's here once every 2 weeks as well to answer your questions. But also, we're going to throw open our toll-free line, so feel free to call tonight. Give us a call if you have some questions, maybe by yourself or maybe it's a family member. Everything's anonymous. Just give us your first name or perhaps a name that maybe you would answer to. That's fine as well. I've always said that this show is a very safe haven. It's your forum. It's a place where you can come and talk and be safe and get some answers to some questions that you may have in your life. So Sean, now I understand that you teach the practices of meditation. How do you slow down the squirrels in your life, in your brain?
Yeah, well, the basic unit of focus is the breath. Right? So you'll hear that
Breathing.
over and over again in mindfulness, meditation. That's the first thing. If you can actually slow down, and you don't have to be sitting cross-legged, you don't have to have any special posture. You can be lying in bed, you just don't want to fall asleep.
Oh, so you don't have to be sitting up then?
There's absolutely no requirement. Even in traditional Buddhist practice, if you sit cross-legged, or it's sometimes called the lotus position, it's basically so you don't fall asleep. Right?
Good point.
Yeah. So, and there's all different types of meditation. There's walking meditation, there's sitting meditation, there's eating meditation. And this is a practice of slowing down. Your breath is the basic unit of mindfulness. Follow your breath. What does it feel like? Is it heavy? Is it light? You know, is it coarse? Really investigate what is going on. As much as possible, you try to clear your head, but you have to be very careful. There's a misconception in meditation that you're supposed to clear your head and get everything out of there. If you're fully enlightened, that's great. You're going to have nothing in there. You're on the mountaintop, wonderful. For everyone else, myself included, you sit down and you're observing what's in your head, right? And the squirrels go, and the monkey mind, it's called. Sometimes, your brain is just going from branch to branch. You observe it. It's like you're at the bottom of a riverbed, you're looking up at the surface, everything, the leaves and the branches and the twigs are floating by, you're at the bottom, you're just watching. You're watching it with a sense of peacefulness, mindfulness, and also self-compassion. You're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, I'm okay, I can do this, I'm not bad.
You were mentioning the first time that you tried meditation.
Yes.
Fill us in, if I may ask.
Sure.
Great story.
My first experience was at a Zen place in Toronto, and it was wonderful. I thought I'd go and I would be relaxed and I would meditate. When it actually came to doing it, it's hard. I had no idea how hard it is. It's a discipline. It's like playing the piano. You need to practice. When I sat down and I did it, and I had that moment of just pretty much facing what was inside, my mind, I had no idea how much chaos was in there. I had terrible thoughts of 1980s movies coming back, and just I didn't know it was in there.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was in there. And, where did that come from?
Schwarzenegger, Steven Seagal, all those guys. And I left actually thinking, I'm never going to do this again. But there was something about it. There was a moment or two of calm and peacefulness, and I could see the benefit of it. And it was slow building. I said, I'll spend 2 minutes every day. And I did that for several months, just 2 minutes. Even that was hard. And then you get to a point, and you go, and it's easier, you kind of plateau, and it's quite the experience.
And from a medical point of view, Dr. Tarman?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned was about the breathing, and the breathing is an interesting piece in meditation, because pretty much any kind of meditation, mindfulness included, will teach you first of all how to breathe, and it gives you the focus. But the other thing that it does is it clicks in the what we call the parasympathetic response, which is our relaxation response. And if I were to say to you, if you're really upset about something, relax, you can't relax. It'll actually make you more tense. But if I say to you, take a deep breath, well, your initial reaction will probably be, I can't, because I'm too tense. Because when we tense up, our breathing becomes very shallow. But you can't intentionally relax, but you can take deep breaths. And when you're focusing on your breathing, then you're actually starting to, without even being aware of it, take deeper breaths and slow down. And the more deeper breaths you can take, the more you're turning on the relaxation response. So even unwittingly, you're becoming more relaxed. And I often ask people, if they can't do mindfulness, to try to do a series of deep breaths, not trying to relax, just trying to take those deep breaths, and then they'll find that they can start to do that, and then mindfulness becomes a little bit easier.
Yes.
But if I just want to say one more thing. I don't know if it's necessary even. Mindfulness is just being observing. You can be still really anxious, but observing your anxiety, and that's mindfulness just as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about being curious of the human experience, right? So you're not fighting, you're not resisting, and it seems counterintuitive or paradoxical, but you're accepting what is. And where the rubber hits the road is in moments where you're struggling, if you're in recovery and you're having cravings and you have anxiety, well, what do? Mindfulness, I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but it can be very, very helpful in dealing with those crisis moments. Right?
Yeah, because one of the things that I see all the time is that patients say, okay, I've stopped my drug. Now I've got all this anxiety and depression, and that means I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I've got to have medication. And part of it is just that they haven't become familiar with the nature of our minds. The human mind is not one that is typically at rest. Its default mode is to be slightly paranoid and slightly anxious. And this is a way of, like you said, having a kind of compassionate view of, the craziness.
Yeah.
We're talking about mindfulness and recovery tonight on Living Clean, Living Well. We're going to take our first break. Our toll-free lines are open, so we are looking forward to taking your calls tonight. Are you struggling with addiction, substance abuse, abuse in your life, trauma? We're here to take your questions. Also, if you would like to talk to us about meditation, perhaps you have tried it. We'd like to hear from you. Does it work? How long did it take you to master the concept and to see how it manifested itself in your life? We'd like to hear from you. So our first break, but when we come back, Dr. Vera Tarman and Sean Megason. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get to our topic of mindfulness and recovery, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a couple of resources for you that are very, very interesting. We always like to tell you about Recovery Wire magazine. Dee Christensen, the editor-in-chief, has been on several times. This month's issue. The issue is not television. The issue is mental illness, the new normal. Of course, the DSM-5 is out. Dr. Vera Tarman is actually in this current issue of Recovery magazine talking about it. She's got the top 10 ways to clean your house. And it's not personal, an allergic reaction to life. Very provocative. It's a very interesting magazine. So you can go to their website at recoverywiremagazine.com and request your free copy. They also have a big gala coming up on June the 15th. It's called A Night You Won't Forget. It's going to be held at the Sanctuary. So if you're planning on being in Toronto, or perhaps you are living in the Southern Ontario region, you can go to this big gala on Saturday, June 15th. Dr. Tarman, you know quite a bit about this event. Why don't you fill us in?
Well, if you like jazz, it's going to be 2 hours of jazz with music.
Terrific.
And then if you don't care for jazz, or you'd like to stay up late at night, I'm not one of those people anymore, there'll be a DJ after 10 o'clock for dancing as well. The thing that's great about it is it's a sober experience. So it's for people in recovery, really just to enjoy life.
What Dee Christensen would say, it's great to be able to go to an event and enjoy it, and you don't have to have a drink in your hand. And
That's
she
right.
said there's going to be beverages there, but non-alcoholic, and she said, we can just go and have fun.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun. So that's on June the 15th at the Sanctuary.
Yes.
So if you need more information, give the folks at Recovery Wire magazine a little email. You can go to their website and you can get more info on that. So tonight my guests are Dr. Vera Tarman, who is the medical director at Renaissance, and Sean Magison, who is an addictions counselor and therapist. We've been talking about mindfulness and recovery, specifically meditation, and how it affects us and how it can be one of those great tools in the kit as you head towards recovery. Tonight our toll-free lines are open, so feel free to give us a call. We are here for your general questions, as well as we'd like to hear about your experiences. Perhaps maybe you've tried mindfulness and meditation. In the areas not only just addictions, but we've been talking about that it can help people through depression and anxiety and stress. Sean, maybe because you teach the practices and everything, could you tell us a little bit about how it can help in those areas as well?
Okay, it's a big question. Essentially, what mindfulness does is teach you to slow down and be kind to yourself. And to discover what it is that's actually going on. So I think I said this last time I was on the show. For example, with depression, as a therapist, I will ask, well, what are you depressing? So
what are you depressing?
Yeah, what are you depressing?
Not what are you depressed about, it's
right.
What are you depressing?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so when you sit and you slow down your thoughts, you slow down your body, things come up. And they are things usually that you have consciously and unconsciously been pushing down.
And are afraid of.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So some people say, well, meditation, what are you doing? You're just sitting there. You're not doing anything. Like, I should be working. I should be working. Actually, meditation is an incredible amount of work. And it takes a lot of courage. Because you're looking at the things that have caused you pain in your life. And you sit with them. And you feel them, and you're curious about them, and you do it in a non-judgmental way, and you heal from that, right? And it's a transformative process. It's slow, sometimes painful, but on the other side of it, there's a fair amount of freedom and lightness and strength that you build.
I think that one of the things that we learn in meditation is the process of detachment from our emotions, that it's actually possible to have an emotion and detach from it, and at some point even choose, do I want to feel sad? Do I need to feel depressed? Can I actually make the choice not to? But a person can't do that if they're in the throes of it. So this allows you to take that step back so that you can actually see that you have a choice, which is a really phenomenal thing when you actually see that. I mean, I can talk about that in theory, but when I'm really upset about something, there is no way I can step back because I'm in it. But having a practice where it becomes second nature to think, well, I'm just going to step back and see, then that moment, that choice point becomes available. Yeah.
You were mentioning too about how important it is to be compassionate with yourself. Could you talk to that, Sean?
Sure. A lot of the mindfulness that I do comes from more or less traditional Buddhism. So there's a practice in Buddhism called metta, M-E-T-T-A, which is considered, the Buddha himself 3,000 years ago considered he called the divine abodes. So you build this practice and you cultivate metta, which is also known as loving kindness. And you literally give yourself loving kindness in the process. And of course, if you're coming from mental health issues, recovery issues, addiction issues, you're not used to giving yourself much kindness.
Yeah,
but
I just want to say,
well,
one of the things that I experienced when I did that meditation with some clients at Homestead actually, is that one person burst into tears.
Yes.
And I said, why are you crying? And they said, the concept of loving kindness to myself, I mean, it made her cry.
Yes.
I don't know if you've had that experience.
Over and over again. And it always reminds me of this fairly famous story of the Dalai Lama when he first started teaching in America. A lot of American Buddhist teachers were trying to explain to him the concept of self-hate. And they were saying, what we deal with is self-hate a lot in America. And the Dalai Lama couldn't understand. And they had to translate it and took several minutes. And he stopped and he said, and he looked at the teachers and they said, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. It is wrong. And it's that cycle that we see so much in addiction. Self-hatred, self-loathing, and I'm going to harm myself through alcohol and drugs and all the rest of it, which increases, of course, the self-loathing.
Let's go to our toll-free line now, and calling in on line 1 from Oshawa is Caroline. Hi, Caroline. Thanks for calling in tonight. You're first up on the show.
Okay, hi.
Hi. Go ahead. Have you got a question or a comment for our guest this evening?
Yes, I do. I've been in recovery from AA since 1991, and I've recently quit smoking as of August. I'm 62 after 43 years. This is a really tough year for me emotionally. I also suffer from bipolar and some mental health issues. So all in all, I did quit cold turkey. I had to be hospitalized for a month and couldn't smoke, and it just, I decided, basically that was it. I just quit smoking and have continued to do so. Emotionally, I'm finding it very, very difficult. I've had trouble with medication adjustments. It's as emotional to me as my first year in sobriety after alcohol, and I'm wondering if this is normal.
Good question. Isn't that funny, Caroline? We're in the process of putting a show together on smoking cessation, quitting smoking. And Dr. Tarman, maybe you'd like to answer Caroline tonight about is what she's going through is normal?
Yeah. Well, Caroline, the quitting smoking and addiction it's so common that people that have addictions are also smokers, and now they're in recovery having to deal with their smoking. I mean, smoking is just the root of smoking itself is one of the fastest and quickest ways to become addicted. So it's a very difficult addiction to break, even though nicotine may seem not as as difficult as heroin or something. The fact that it's smoking makes it very, very hard. So your experience about having a difficult time is that's so normal. It's very rare that a person doesn't have a hard time with quitting smoking, and there are various ways to taper down. I mean, there's different ways you can do cold turkey or taper down. Both of them are difficult to do, but they're doable if you can get through the first 2 or 3 weeks. You're over the hump. It's not like it's months and months and months of agony. It's only months and months of agony if you cheat, because cheating just prolongs the agony. But if you actually go cold turkey or stop, then you just have to know I can just get past the 3-week mark.
Caroline, I think you said, how long has it been since you've smoked?
Since August, I haven't had a cigarette.
Yeah, she's more than over the hump.
Yeah, so
but she's just saying it's been an emotional year for her, and is that normal?
Yeah. So what you're talking about here is not the physical addiction itself. It's the emotional cues, and probably you're wanting something to soothe your emotional pain. And cigarettes have been a best friend of yours in the past. So that's Do you have something to add about that?
Can meditation help?
It can help with the cravings. It can help.
Do you have
with the
cravings still, Caroline, or are you just feeling
Cravings.
sad because you're missing smoking?
But it is, but I find emotionally I'm as missing as much as I was the first year of sobriety from alcohol, which in 1991, it was a tough year. So, the first year in anything is, and I had no trouble quitting. Being in the hospital, and I used no aids, so I don't want to introduce nicotine. It's tough, though. I wasn't prepared for the emotional side and the dreams. I have a lot of not nightmares, but very vivid dreams that I'm just totally unaware of from before.
Yeah. I know my parents both quit smoking, and they told me it was just heck. And it went on for years, the thoughts of, they would like to go back smoking, but of course won't. So, it's for years. Have you ever smoked?
Yes, I have.
You have, yeah. When you quit, did those feelings go on? Were you emotional, as Caroline is saying?
I'm a believer that if you get grace on one addiction, and that was the addiction that was really easy for me to quit, because I somehow knew that if I picked up, that would be bad. So I never cheated, I never picked up. So I was actually really surprised at how easy it was for me to quit that. It was not easy for me to quit sugar, not at all compared to cigarettes. But I know other people have a really hard time. I mean, really what I think Caroline is illustrating is that it's not really the substance, it's the addiction. It's our friend, it's our soother. And what do you do with the depression and the anxiety? That's where mindfulness as a tool becomes so useful. Because, recovery, the first step only is stopping the drug. Now you have to live.
So we've got several other calls to get to, but Sean, I was just wondering, as Dr. Tarman just said, some final words for Caroline. Could meditation perhaps help her?
It could. You know, the main thing about mindfulness is to be curious about the experience. So if you're having dreams, you're in a whirlwind, mindfulness might be a good way to get some distance from the chaos of the emotions, and just be curious about it, not fight it, but to be with it, roll with it.
Yeah, well, it's not easy, Caroline. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. Some words of comfort for you and perhaps a suggestion of some mindfulness techniques as in meditation. Let's go now to line 2. Catherine's on the line from Toronto. Go ahead, Catherine. It's your turn.
Hello, my name's Catherine. I'm from Toronto. I'm 2 years and 3 months clean off of crack cocaine, and I developed a habit of being grateful. I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for each day. Or when I'm in bed, I say I'm grateful. Like even for the NA program, I'm grateful for a new relationship with my community, and it really helps me a lot to get through the tough times.
Is that a form of mindfulness as well, being grateful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's central, absolutely central. And actually, the repetitive practice of being grateful for 5 things every day is part of mindfulness. So you're actually retraining your brain, and that's one of the things that mindfulness does. Right? The brain is there's neuroplasticity in the brain, which means we can change. Right? I mean, the older way of thinking is, well, our brain is set, we're not going to change, that's it. Actually, it's not like that at all, right? So a repetitive pattern of being grateful, I think that's incredible.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that, Dr.
Well,
Tarman?
it's what they say, neurons that fire together, wire together. So
very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the more you do something, the more it becomes ingrained. Absolutely.
That's awesome, Catherine.
Yeah.
You know what? You've inspired me because, I know we need to be grateful. There's so many things, but if you just sit down and you think of how grateful you are, number one, if you have your health, you have everything, And if you just sit down and make a gratitude list, what a way to start your day, or even when you're feeling bad, or down. So that's great words of advice. We're going to take that moment to take another commercial break here on Living Clean, Living Well. But when we come back, we've got Ed and Paul both on the line. We'll be taking their calls and yours as well. My guests tonight, Dr. Tarman and Sean Magison. We'll be right back.
I've had numerous opportunities to get into addiction counseling over the past 5 or 6 years. This one at New Awakenings really appealed to me. First off, the facility here, we've got a swimming pool, there's a gym downstairs. Other side of the fence, golf course, it's fantastic, and the food is, world class. The staff cover all aspects of recovery. These are people with extensive experience in the field, all with the sincere desire to be helpful. If you want a shot at recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, New Awakenings is your best bet. Give us a call. We'll get right back to you.
Welcome back to Living Clean, Living Well. Just before the break, Catherine called in tonight from Toronto and suggested that we all, this is what she does. She takes a moment in her day and writes down 5 things that she's grateful for. And I must tell you, one thing that we're grateful for is all of you that continue to watch the show week after week and make it is what it is. And the fact that we are able to be here on CTS, it's a proud presentation of the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness. It's just tremendous that this show has gone on now it's 4 or 5 years now on the air. I've been involved for about 3 now, and it's been very, very rewarding work. So that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is all of you and my fabulous guests. So let's return to the toll-free lines tonight. My guests, Dr. Vera Tarman from Renaissance, and Sean Makeson, who is an addictions counselor and therapist. Let's go now to line 3. Ed's calling in from Hamilton. Hi there, Ed. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi.
I just have a comment about the mindfulness. I've been battling addiction for about 20 years, and I've found over the last 3 years I've started that mindfulness with meditation, and I've found that now I am aware of when the cravings come into my head and thoughts about using. When they get there, what I do is I realize they're just thoughts, and I don't have to follow through on them. So I just find
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Sean, do you want to follow up on that? That's great, Ed. You know, it's great that somebody's put the stamp of approval on what we're speaking of tonight.
Awareness,
Yeah.
right? Awareness is everything, right? And so if you can see where the seeds are planted, and you can trace it, and you can look at it, and you can respond to it, or not respond to it, or do what's necessary in the moment, that is everything.
Yeah, Ed, how long did it take for you to get into meditation? Are you able to tell us about your journey and how it's helped you?
Sure. It took me probably, I started off slow, maybe about a half a year, because it kept just fading in and out, and then I realized I had to actually think about nothing, and that was really difficult to do. And then actually once I started thinking about nothing, then I could control my thoughts.
Yeah.
Eventually I ended up thinking only about now and the present. And being in the present moment, it was really good because I got rid of all the garbage in the past and worrying about the future. Yeah. And so being in the present all the time, helping you to be aware of what was coming into my mind at the time, which might take me on the wrong road.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Ed. Dr. Tarman, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, you gave a really interesting definition of mindfulness, because if you, I mean, see, what you're trying to do in mindfulness is watch yourself as if you're watching your thoughts as if they were a movie, and without feeding into the actual emotions. And so there you are, you're talking about the cravings, and they're just cravings. And if you don't actually hook into them, it's amazing. Thoughts dissipate within seconds, minutes. And if you just watch them, they literally will just disappear if you don't jump on them and ride them. And you become aware of how transient thinking is, and even cravings are. So they become less afraid, and you become less afraid of your emotions in the way that you were able to feel with your cravings. Because I got to tell you, for those of you in recovery, you have no control over the fact that you'll have cravings or urges or triggers, because triggers are all over the place. What you'll have control over is what you do with those. Whether you attach to them, get afraid of them, or you just go, oh, there it is again. Thank you. Nice, and then there it goes away. It's a different attitude.
Absolutely.
You don't have to scratch every itch.
No.
There you go.
Ed, thank you so much for calling in tonight. It is great to hear from you, and thanks so much for backing up what we're all talking about tonight. And it's great to have somebody that is, you know, that it's worked for, and glad to hear your story. Let's go now to line 4, and calling in from Thornhill is Paul. Hi, Paul. Welcome to our show.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I've been having lots of trouble these past few months. I'm 7.5 months clean from alcohol and drugs and marijuana. And I've been having thoughts, like mental and emotional thoughts about using marijuana, not physically. Like I want the effect, but I don't want to actually do it as substance. I want to mentally and emotionally have that relief. But I'm always in my head thinking a lot. And do you have any suggestions you can give me on that?
Dr. Tarman?
Well, I liked what the previous caller said. I mean, what you're experiencing is a craving. And if you were to be aware of the craving in the present moment, here I am sitting here at this table, and I have this craving to smoke marijuana. And the thoughts about the future, what will I do with that craving, you know, later when I leave, will I go and smoke, or, you know, what will I have done in the past? Those things belong to another time frame. I'm just looking at the present moment. I think you'll find that the craving will become less intense or less real. I don't know if you want to add.
Absolutely. In Buddhism, there's an expression, you know, sometimes if you invite your demons in for tea, they'll leave, right? So if you actually push the cravings away, you try to ignore them, they will come back, right? And as Dr. Tarman said, the cravings will always be there, sometimes very strong, sometimes very much on the periphery. Just be aware of them. Be aware of them, be with them, but don't react.
So how do you invite them in for tea but not answer them and do what they say?
Just hello, cravings. Hello.
Acknowledge them. Yeah.
You know, and it seems
thank you.
counterintuitive, but that's it, you know.
And here's the anxiety. Hello, anxiety.
Right? Here's my depression.
Hello. And then the next moment, the anxiety's bigger. Well, you've gotten bigger.
Yes.
You just keep noting what happens and not reacting to it.
And giving yourself compassion in that process.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect
Yeah.
solution. It's not going to instantly flip a switch and make it go away. But if you be in it and practice it as a process, it will add up.
I think what happens is people go, oh no, and then they lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Paul, I really hope that that was helpful for you tonight. Let's go to line 1, and Donna is on the line from Toronto. Hi there, Donna. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
What I'm calling about is I've been doing mindfulness with my therapist, and I'm having a really hard time with self-loathing. Long story short, I was abused when I was young, and I dealt with the trauma through sports. I played a lot of tennis and all sorts of sports. But in the last few years, I lost my leg, so I'm not able to do the kind of sports and activities that I have been able to do. And I can't, I'm stuck in moving forward to try to help myself, but I'm not able to because I keep thinking about the past and what I am not able to do anymore. So I'm stuck in self-loathing. Every time I try to, take a few steps or walk up the stairs, I have a difficult time, and I just hate myself because I'm not able to do what I did before, and I'm not sure how to get out of that.
Yeah.
If anything.
Self-loathing.
There's Donna, you're taking a mindfulness course. I know that in a lot of the hospitals they have a sort of joint course that's called cognitive therapy and mindfulness together. And it sounds like the mindfulness would be very helpful. But it sounds like the cognitive therapy piece might also be very helpful because it would help you to address some of the thoughts that you have that are leading to that self-loathing. So I'm just going to suggest that you look into that as well.
Yeah, Donna, you're working with your therapist doing mindfulness. What you might want to look into with your therapist is the notion of self-forgiveness. It is an option. It actually sounds like you're doing a very good job, and that even the way that you're talking about it and you're struggling, you're in it. So that's really, very, very, very good. But think about the idea of self-forgiveness, forgiving yourself. It's an option. There's that old expression, forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past, right? What does that leave you with? Well, it leaves you with now. It leaves you with the present moment.
Donna, thank you very much for calling in. We hope that that is helpful for you. Let's go now to line 5, and Jay's on the phone from Toronto this evening. Hi there, Jay. We got a question or a comment from my guests.
Yeah, hi guys, how you doing?
Hi. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, for me, I've been doing this since I was fairly young, and the form of meditation that I use is I would lie in bed and I would just relax every part of my body, starting from my toes, then to my ankles and my knees, and slowly I move my way up, joint by joint, bone by bone. I sink into my mattress. And usually when I get out to my neck, I fall asleep, but prior to that time, I feel really relaxed, and my mind is very focused but clear at the same time. And I find the opposite of that is if I watch too much TV, or if I'm engaging in some form of media too much, I would find that my mind is racing. It's all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. One of the worst things you can do is check your email before you go to bed. I tell hubby about that. Don't look at the computer. Get back away from the computer. That's why you're not falling asleep till 2 o'clock. But Sean, I'm curious with the technique of the relaxing the body. I've heard of that one before.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
But he's falling asleep sometimes.
Well, that's the thing, with mindfulness being a discipline and a practice, you don't want to fall asleep, right? So you might want to, change that a bit. But being sucked into media, that's, join the club,
It's a good warning, Jay. Just a fast question before we get to these other calls that are lining up. How do you know when you're there? Because Jay said his mind was clear, it was focused. I've tried meditation, and I think I got there, and I'm not sure. How do you know?
How do you know? It's like they say, if you have to ask, you don't know.
But that's where your mind should be perfectly still.
Clarity,
Can you think of anything? Should you be thinking of anything at that moment?
When you think about it, even if thinking about not thinking is not recommended, right? So being in the present moment, it's a paradox. And that's the thing. It's not an idea. It's an experience, right? So how do you get there? Well, I don't know.
Well, you've been there.
And I leave it all the time. It may be half a second. There's an experience of samadhi, right? Of having calm, peaceful. I'm not a meditation master. So I struggle just as much as anyone. If I can get one clear breath in 10 minutes, I'm happy. But then not happy for very long.
Well, that's great insight. Thank you. And Jay, some great ideas from you. Appreciate you calling in. Let's go to line 4. And Ghislaine is calling in from Ottawa. Hi there, Ghislaine. Welcome to our show.
Hi.
Hi there. Have you got a question or a comment?
Yes, I do, actually. You were
just
talking about, sorry, I'll turn off my seat. You were just talking about cravings. I've been in recovery with a 12-step program for over 6 years now and doing well. I've had recovery before that and unfortunately relapsed. And it took me this time in recovery to realize that that my relapse was based on emotions that I was not dealing with. Yeah. I was afraid. I suppose I was afraid. And I just blocked everything until it became so overwhelming that the only option that I saw in my mind was to go back and use until it dragged me down so low. It was basically life and death. And I chose life. I believe that God took me there, that He, at that moment, I really do believe I do really believe in a God of a loving God of my understanding, and I really believe that He came at that moment where it was at that moment life or death, and I chose life. And anyway, so I've noticed that in my first year, I remember driving in my car and I got this craving, like this sudden boom in my stomach, because that's where I feel it. Just like when I was a child and I felt fear or sadness or excitement, it was always in my stomach. And that's what I felt at that moment, driving the car, and I panicked a little. And all of a sudden, I just started taking really deep breaths and telling myself, I'm feeling an emotion right now. Yep. Okay, what is it? And I noticed that it was the area I was driving in. I was near a Tim Hortons, and it brought me a memory. And I realized that I was not craving, because I'm not, I don't have a drug problem right now. I have a me problem. I have an emotional problem. It's my emotions. And I've noticed that feeling in my stomach, that I don't like to call a craving anymore, because to call it a craving relates it to drugs, and that's not where I want to be in my mind. I want to be in a recovering process. And a recovering process for me is to deal with my emotions, and that's what's changed in the past 4 months, years. Is that I've been dealing with my emotions. I've recently started trauma. Childhood trauma therapy, because I want to go further. I want to pass these things, you know, these emotions that kept me from staying clean years ago, that brought me down. I don't want them to stay there anymore. You know, and it's through dealing with every one of these emotions.
Yeah.
Like in the moment. I really love what I've been listening to. In the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Ghislaine brings up such a good point, and we've dealt with it on the show before. Yeah. Do you treat the addiction first and the problem second, or the problem first and the addiction second? And she brought up both.
Yeah, yeah. Ghislaine, I want to say you described so well exactly what we're talking about. Yes. How to take that craving and apply a mindfulness practice, and then you described the success of that. I mean, anybody who's listening, that was mindfulness in action.
Yeah, beautiful.
Bravo.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. We have to take another short break here on Living Clean, Living Well, but when we come back, more of your phone calls. My guests, Dr. Vera Tarman and Sean Makeson. We'll be right back.
Statistics state that it is likely you know a victim of abuse. It could be a friend, a relative, a colleague. It could even be you. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. Please give them hope. Help us make it stop. Go to abusehurts.com and give to the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness.
We're talking about mindfulness tonight and how it can help us in the areas of addiction, depression, pain management, stress, anxiety. There's been a number of phone calls tonight from people that have said, you know, I'm trying mindfulness, meditation. It's been great to hear about how this is one extra tool that you could throw into your kit on the road to recovery. So let's go back to our toll-free lines, and calling in from Aurora tonight is Linda on line 1. Hi there, Linda, it's your turn.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can, hon. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd just like to say that I've been clean and sober now for almost 18 years. Wow. I realized I was saved by grace from the first addiction, but I realized I had multi-addictions to heal pain. I was told that alcohol saved my sanity. And I came from a very dysfunctional home, and I was kidnapped and raped at 5, and I have had so much healing. I like myself. I give myself compassion. I've broken this disease of codependency, people-pleasing, allowing people to control me and my thoughts. I was diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. My fear is almost gone. I love my God. I love my life. And I have a wonderful sponsor that says, don't let anybody come into your house, control you, manipulate you, deceive you, which is about just about everybody. So, you know, it says in the big book, we don't trust people, we trust God. And God has cleaned up so much of I really feel in a lot of ways that I'm born again. But I don't believe in joining churches because I have done my family of origin work. I have forgiven them by going through the trauma, going through what they came from. And I believe that if other people do not do their family of origin work, they put that crap onto you. And that's why a lot of these 12-step groups are so sick, because they're acting out the role of their mother or father. And I was completely devastated in one group, and I relieved myself from that. If it doesn't feel comfortable, if it doesn't feel like it's God's plan for me in my life today, I don't do it. And I'm still working on me. I'm my problem, and with God and me, and being an open mind to all these other solutions. I've been to CODA, I've been to Al-Anon, I've been to AA, I've been to Guelph for post-traumatic stress disorder. Anytime they said, I've been in psychodrama, I was for 5 years, try it, Linda, I said yes, yes, yes. If that's God's will, that's it. People, places, and things can drive me crazy because they are not in the same walk as me, and so I have to be aware of that. And I can be very kind and considerate of people now, but I don't have to take them home. My little house is like my place to pray, meditate, and love my God and my life and my animals, and I'm just so happy. And it sounds unusual, but if anybody else is in a situation, I was so depressed because I was being oppressed and controlled by other people, and that's a sin against God. It's a sin to manipulate people. It's a sin to control them. You have to live your own life and do the best you can, and I got all the controllers out of my life, and I'm happy, joyous, and free.
Oh, that's fabulous, Linda. I love the conviction in your voice, and she really brings up some good points. You know, when she was talking about God and the 12-step program, when you were talking about mindfulness, like the roots are in Buddhism, but it can be something that's taught independent of religion, you guys were saying?
For sure. I mean, one of the things about mindfulness is that it's really a distillation of many different religious practices. You know, in the Catholic tradition, it's called contemplative prayer. In Buddhism, it's a Buddhist practice. I mean, mindfulness is really just having taken the essential bit of attention, the essential ingredient of a lot of these practices, and distilled it into a very agnostic practice, so that somebody who has a problem with the concept of religion can still use the practice. The practice is very powerful. You know, science, medicine has adopted it. What we would call meditation in a Buddhist tradition, we call mindfulness, because we don't want to scare away the people who are afraid of the word meditation. It's the same thing. It's just been sanitized or you know, made into a clinical term, but it really is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
It's stripped of its religious piece.
Linda brought up some points about, you know, people that want to control and manipulate you. Sean, can you use mindfulness in that area, in those areas? Can that help you with centering yourself? And
it can. It can. You know, one central concept of mindfulness, which comes from Buddhism, is the idea of detachment. Linda, and by the way, I want to really praise Linda. It's obviously someone who's done a massive amount of work, and I bow down to her. It's wonderful hearing that.
And thanks for sharing, Linda. That was awesome.
Yeah. And she mentioned codependency, and one of the central tenets of healing from codependency is detachment. So it's interesting. In Buddhism, there's the idea of attachment relating to pain.
Loving detachment.
That's it.
There
right.
we go.
Yeah. So practicing loving detachment, being mindful of that, absolutely central.
Let's talk a little bit more and expand on that loving detachment.
Well, I just picked up on, because you had talked about loving kindness before, that you know, the term for the Al-Anon and things like that is programs like that is to take the people that are causing you a lot of grief and detach from them, but in a loving manner. Because if you detach, and this is including your own emotions, if you detach with a negativity around it, you're still hooked. But there's something about the process of love that allows you to let go in a positive way, because you're not fearful anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Total sense. So as we talk a little bit more about mindfulness, what are some steps that people can take, Sean?
In terms of
bringing that practice into your life, into your recovery. I guess possibly we could all read, I suppose, if we're not going to a therapist. I guess we could go online and read about it. We could take courses, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a million things you can do. There's tons of free online resources, there's courses. Dr. Tarman mentioned there's numerous programs at hospitals. If you're interested in the Buddhist aspect, you can go to, do an online search for Buddhist organizations in and around Toronto. Sometimes the cost is nothing. Sometimes it's $20, $40, and make it an adventure. There's tons of things out there. You're going to find very accepting, loving people when you go to these places, and it gives you a really good feeling of acceptance.
And it doesn't have to be, if you're afraid of sitting alone by yourself, you mentioned that there's different types of meditation. It can be a walking meditation. Like, I'm somebody who likes to move. And so I do a walk every day. And in that walk, I try to spend a certain amount of that time just listening. I find listening is easier than looking at a candle or something. Just listening. All I'm going to do for the next 5 minutes is listen to the sounds of the birds, to the people behind me, to the cars. I'm just listening as I'm walking. And I find that that's much easier to do than to sit quietly. It's mindfulness just as effectively as any other.
Yes.
Do you find that stills your mind?
Yeah.
It does.
Well, it stills my mind because you can't think and listen at the same time.
That's a good point. But if you hear a car, you've got to think, oh, geez, I got to get my car in for that oil change. No?
Well, then I'm thinking, yes, and then reacting. But if I see that that's not happening, then I just notice, well, I had a scare, and now I'm back to listening.
Yeah.
You don't actually want to stop those things from happening. You just want to, as much as you can, develop that observer attitude.
You accept them. You accept them. You lean into them. You're curious about them.
Yes.
And it's all about dropping judgment, dropping thinking, dropping an analysis.
Is there a moment? I'd just like to share something that happened. Like you mentioned that you had that. Sometimes it's just a moment in your hour of sitting. But that moment is really helpful because I remember a few nights ago, a couple of weeks ago, I woke up with some really bad heartburn. It was like, oh my God, this hurts. And I was shocked at how painful it was. And I thought, what am I going to do? And then in that moment of distress, I had this moment of this insight because of a previous sitting or walking meditation that I could just watch this pain. And the moment I thought I could just watch this pain, I noticed the pain starting to go down. And it was like, yes, it's still there, but I'm not afraid anymore. Because that level of distance, which I had because of a moment's experience, helped me in that moment. Yeah.
That's great.
Fantastic.
And you know, the other thing that I've learned tonight is that you can move in and out of meditation. I thought once you were out, it's going, oh, well, I blew it again. No, so you can move in and out. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's kind of hard to describe, right? I mean, it's not
just
like...
stick with it and go back to stilling the mind.
Up and down. It's, the practice of cultivating mindfulness, and it is something you have to work at. It goes up and down, up and down. You may sit and have a wonderful session. You may, or listening to the birds or dealing with pain. Everything goes swimmingly. And then the next day, it's like terrible. Everything, but it's okay. It's all part of the process. There's no end to it.
Well, what a great discussion we've had about mindfulness and recovery. When we come back, the final thoughts from our guests. We'll see you in a moment.
I've had numerous opportunities to get into addiction counseling over the past 5 or 6 years. This one at New Awakenings really appealed to me. First off, the facility here. We've got a swimming pool, there's a gym downstairs. Other side of the fence, golf course. It's fantastic, and the food is, world class. The staff cover all aspects of recovery. These are people with extensive experience in the field, all with the sincere desire to be helpful. If you want a shot at recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, New Awakenings is your best bet. Give us a call. We'll get right back to you.
Life is a journey, and there are many things that we can do if you are in recovery. Tonight we've been discussing mindfulness and recovery. Final thoughts from Sean Makeson.
Yeah, you know, I think the final thought I'd like to leave you with is the idea that mindfulness is a journey. There's no right way to do it. There's no handbook. You're not going to be marked. You're not going to be judged. But what you will learn is more about yourself and being in the world and slowing down. So when you slow down, you can see the road signs a lot more clearly, and that will help quite a lot, whether you're dealing with mental health or addiction issues. So.
Dr. Tarman, your final thought?
Yeah, my final thought is that this is an excellent tool for recovery, and unlike medications, there are no side effects. There are only positive effects. And
That's good.
If you apply to it on a daily basis in the same way as a person would take medication, you'll get the same positive effects.
Well, there we go. So that's been our show on mindfulness and recovery. Our guests tonight, Dr. Vera Tarman and Sean Mageson. We thank you two for joining us. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
And folks, thanks for your phone calls tonight and calling in. I will see you next week. So long for now.